Today we've got an Epiphone Les Paul. I think this one's maybe just a year or two old. It's not very old. This one's actually set up pretty well. I mean, it plays very well. We'll go through and see what all the specs are. I know it needs a little neck adjustment. I know this fretboard is super dry. This guitar was originally set up for 9s. It has 10s on it now. So the intonation is a little bit off. I think the neck is a little too straight, but we will confirm that here. Let's get this truss rod cover out of the way. This is a 12th thou feeler. Let's just see where it's at. And that's just eyeballing it. It was really straight, and that's really tight. Let's see if 5 is the right number. I do like to track all the specs of the incoming guitars. So if somebody says, hey, put it back like it was, I want to know what it was so that I can put it back. So, yeah, so it's tight there, and it's slipping under there just at the middle. I think if we take a 6, it's dragging, 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 dragging. So 5 thou is the neck relief on this one. I always start by loosening. So this works just like a normal screw, right? Lefty loosey, righty tighty. So loose is going to be this direction right there. And it's always kind of a fun game pulling the wrench back out of the hole. You don't want to wreck the finish on the guitar, or you'll be doing a finish repair. Let's just see if we're close there. Still a little tight. Yeah, we'll loosen it off just a little bit more than it needs. This might be a two-way truss rod. Oh, that's better. That's much better. Yep. So I'm digging that. That's right at 12. We'll start there. I can already tell the string action has popped up. Yeah, so we're at 5 on the treble, and we're over 6 on the bass. Lowering this one down a little bit. And I took all the tension off the strings. I was trying to turn these before I got down here, but this one is just stuck. If I pick up this end, it takes just enough tension off for me to drive it down a little bit. So it was just so cattywampus there that this was digging in on this end. Let's take a look at the string height here. Again, in playing position. And on the bass side, we're right at 5/64, and on the treble side, we're a little bit north of 4. We'll drop that down when I change strings, and we'll get it right at the 4/64. So that will do it for roughing out the guitar. I do want to show everybody these strings real quick. The owner of this guitar was complaining a little bit about tuning stability just on the G string, which is a very common complaint. So a lot of times that has to do with how the nut slot is cut. And you can see it can pinch right there where it comes out at an angle rather than straight. And this one seems to be cut pretty well. This one here is a little pinchy. And I noticed when I was playing it before I started working on it that if you were doing a lot of bends on the G string, it would detune a little bit. So we're going to cut some relief into that nut. But I was also looking at the way the strings are wound on the tuning machines here. And this one's kind of got like an over-under. This one's got a whole bunch of wraps. It's just kind of like very inconsistent. And I'm not trying to be disparaging here. That's not why I do these videos. I do these videos so we can all learn. We don't come out of our of the womb knowing how to do everything there is on guitar. We have to learn from people, and we have to learn by seeing and understanding what others are doing. So what we're going to want is a consistent number of wraps. I like 3 wraps, and we want them consistent. You can do an over-under kind of thing. I don't prefer that. I prefer them all underneath, where the string pokes through on the tuning peg. I want 3 wraps under it. And what that does is it pushes the string down here. It's like having a string tree, and it gets rid of some of the sitar sounds, and it generally makes things more stable. You can see here the variation in plane. You want these all to be flat plane across here. Like this one's high, that one's low, this one's probably about where it should be. One of the most frequent questions I get is about whether you detune your guitar before you cut the strings, or whether it can take just letting them rip. And I would say this, you know, when you dive bomb on a Floyd Rose, you're going from like super floppy tension back to full tension, and some people really wang on on their tremolos, and the whole guitar can take it. I think I saw one of these wiggle. That one's wiggling, that one's wiggling, that one's wiggling. We'll tighten up all these bushings. Ooh, that was sharp. We'll tighten up all these bushings. But generally, I loosen the strings off, and then I cut them. I don't know. It takes an extra 5 seconds, so I do it. And my thought is, I want to give everything the best shot. You know, you don't want to chance anything. We're going to go over the frets just real quick with some fret erasers, just kind of give them a little bit of a shine here. I'm just going to put a little bit of polish on there. We're just going to kind of dab it on. I always like to just put a little bit on the frets. I always do this step before I oil the fretboard. And when I oil the fretboard, it kind of brings everything back to the same luster. A little linseed oil here. You can see I just don't layer it on. I know I say this in all my videos, but you just put enough on to cover it. And you do this frequently. If you're in a really dry environment like I am, you can do this every time you change your strings. It doesn't hurt anything to over oil a fretboard over time. But usually I recommend, like with new guitars and stuff, do it every string change for about a year, and then you can look at every 6 months after that. But that gets you a really good base going on the guitar. Doing a little filing here of fret ends, and I don't know how much you'll be able to see all the way down there, but I always put my index finger of my left hand, because I'm right-handed, here to guide the file. And this file I like a lot. It's like the width of a piece of fret wire, and then it's got 2 safe edges. Yeah, there we go. Digging that. Much better on the hands now. When you use a wrench, you don't want to go crazy with it. It's just snug, you know? We're not racing on a drag strip or something like that. You're not worried about these coming loose at high speed. I always look to see if any of these screws back here are loose, and if so, I just give them a little snug. The customer did have a little complaint about this G string, so what I usually do is point the file right at the tuning peg and just give it a little bit of clearance back here. And I'm talking about clearance, how do I want to say this way. Can you guys see that? You know, like if you lift the back of your file, you can give it that clearance, as long as you're not adjusting the takeoff point on the fretboard side. You can do a lot with the back side of a nut, but then you can also clearance against the wall, is what I would call it, on the back side here. And that's what I'm doing. It's just giving it, I mean, it's not much, you know, a couple thousandths of clearance back there. Before we put strings on, we can go ahead and put a little nut sauce in there. That just helps everything glide a little bit better. Today we are in the player circle with, I think these are NYXLs. Yeah, NYXL 10 to 46. As I got into stringing this, after I talked about having 3 wraps come around, I realized that these tuning machines don't allow for 3 wraps on these heavier strings. So essentially you have to kind of adjust how you do your work here. So I'm going like 1 tuner past and just kind of pulling the string tight there, and then you just pull it back through is how I do it. And then you put your index finger right there by the tuning machine to keep tension on it as you're wrapping it around. If you don't do that, the string end will just flop all over. And, you know, look back at your saddle, make sure you're still in the saddle and all that kind of stuff. What we want is for this string, it's going to be a little bit hard to show, but where the string comes through, you want this wrap to be right under it, pushing up. And that will hold the string end tight from slipping. So this G string, I probably could have gone another wrap here.
Figured I'd bring you guys along here for the final check just so you can see what I see. So we are right on the center line of that 5 is what we're looking for. I don't know if you guys can see that, but we are right on it. And then the center line of the 4. It's hard to give you guys my perspective here with the camera, but the center line of the 4 is what we're looking for there. And we're spot on there as well.
Our last big task here is going to be intonation. And I went through earlier and just kind of took before we did our truss rod adjustment, string height adjustment and all that, just kind of took a little bit of stock in there so I know we're off on a few of them. But this is our high E. It is sharp. So when you have, I'm looking for the right tool here. That's not it. When you have a string that's sharp, it means that the distance between the 12th fret and the bridge is too short. So you need to lengthen that out. And generally, if you're going to lengthen things out, if it's just a little adjustment, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's a bigger adjustment, you want to take the tension off the string a little bit so that it can slide freely. And we're going to give it couple turns like that. Still just a touch sharp. And we will recheck all of this in the playing position for all of you out there and anybody who's got perfect pitch. Yes, this guitar is in E flat, so don't go crazy on me. Yeah, so we just popped out this guy here, and these are really easy to flip. You just unscrew the screw here, flip your saddle around the other way, and you can see that gives it just a little bit more room to adjust. You just got to take it in steps here. So kind of get through there. There we go. Get the saddle in. So now we can get it about where we think it's going to go. It should be about there based on our last adjustment. Just last little piece we want to look at is pickup height, and I'm just using the StewMac gauge here. Bringing both of these up. Let's see how we're sitting now. 4/64 is the measurement that we're going for. It came up a little bit too high here. On the neck pickup, yeah, that looks good. And on the bridge, Gibson will tell you 3/64, so we're a little bit low there, a little bit low there. Not too bad though. This one's pretty close. So we'll do that. Do that. That's good. And that is looking lovely. We've got it all squared away here. I got to trim the strings off now that we're all done. And to give it a final playthrough, check everything again in the playing position. Sounds pretty good. Thanks for joining me today. That's it for this Epiphone Les Paul. Pretty sweet guitar. Sounds really great. These pickups for an Epiphone, man, I would take them. Take care, guys.
If you would like more guitar-related content, click that subscribe button. And as always, visit skyscraperguitars.com for guitar tools and accessories.